Thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. Now just 9 days until Election Day. Tens of thousands of votes already cast, and several races in Indiana right now are still considered toss-ups. Let's start today by talking about the 9th District congressional race, one drawing attention around the country. Democrat Shelly Yoder and Republican Trey Hollingsworth in what's been a contentious and believed to be an extremely close race to replace Todd Young in that district, covering much of southern Indiana. And we want to welcome in Republican Trey Hollingsworth. Now, Trey, thanks so much for being here again. Great to see you. Last time we were here, we had the big Tennessee Trey talk.
Absolutely.
As I was driving home the other day, I heard multiple ads on the radio. They continue to hammer away at this thought that you are not indeed a Hoosier. Right. Your reply to those critics out there right now who say that you moved here shortly before the election and your dad has in part bankrolled your campaign. You're in it to win it, though.
Well, look, I tell you what they don't tell you in those ads is that I've been working in Indiana the last 11 years, that I live today 4 miles from where my wife was born and raised, and to move back home so that we can raise our family close to her family and close to the businesses I've had in Indiana the last 11 years. They leave all of those important facts out because they're trying to distract voters from the real issues. I want to talk about how we fix the economy. I want to talk about how we get back to a strong foreign policy that keeps Americans safe. I want to talk about how we get back to a limited government that balances its budget. They want to distract voters and try to pretend like these other issues are the most important, when instead what I hear every day across the district is how we can move America ahead. That's what I want to do. That's what I'm focused on. And the fact that they leave out that my wife's family is from here and that I've been working here the last 11 years, to me, is the height of hypocrisy.
You have talked about repealing the Affordable Care Act, often out on the campaign trail. Premiums going up by double-digit percentages into next year, announced by the White House this week. Your thoughts when you heard that, and what do you do in its place?
It is exactly what Americans should expect when the government gets involved and takes over as a monopoly. I've continued to try to tell my opponent that we should repeal Obamacare. She continues to say that Shelly Yoder, wants to not only expand Obamacare, but even go to nationalized health care. I continue to say that I want companies competing for American dollars. I don't want Americans mandated to give companies dollars. So the answer to what we replace it with is a free market, is one where companies are innovating, companies are developing better products, companies are driving down costs so they can serve Hoosiers and Americans better. That's what we need so that we get better patient outcomes, so we get more affordable health care, so we get more coverage in our insurance. That's what every American wants, and that's how we deliver, is through more competition, not more government involvement and distortion like my opponent continues to push. She wants to expand Obamacare into nationalized health care, even rationing out Medicare, where government boards would decide who gets Medicare and who doesn't get Medicare. The answer is not more government, as my opponent says. The answer is less government.
Let's talk about the presidential race now, overshadowing a lot of headlines on the local and national level right now. Your thoughts on Donald Trump? Do you support him for president?
I do support Donald Trump for president. My opponent supports Hillary Clinton, even supports all of the failed policies that Hillary Clinton has put forth, supports Nancy Pelosi, and would be nothing more than a blank check for Hillary Clinton should she get elected. I continue to say that Hillary Clinton is not the right answer. Now, I don't endorse everything that Donald Trump has said or everything that he's tweeted, but I believe that we need change in government. This government we've got right now is serving politicians. It's serving insiders like Hillary Clinton and my opponent, but it is not serving the people of this country, and we've got to get back to a government that's by the people, for the people, and I support the Republican nominee for president, while my opponent continues to support not only Hillary Clinton, but Nancy Pelosi and all of the failed policies that have gotten us in this disastrous mess to start with.
Many Republican leaders and Donald Trump obviously have not been on the same page, especially over the past few weeks. How has that challenged your campaign now with less than 2 weeks to go?
Look, I'm not worried about what other people are doing in other districts. What I'm worried about every single day is how I talk to every voter that I can. I want them to hear from me personally how committed to this change I am. I want them to hear from me personally how excited I am to take my experience in creating 9 different businesses here in Indiana, hundreds of Hoosier jobs, to Washington so we can get back to a thriving and growing economy. Every single day I wake up with the same mission: talk to more people about how we get the change that we want and the results we need in Washington. That's what I'm doing every single day.
Republican Trey Hollingsworth,
thank you so much. I appreciate you having me here.
Jason, thank you so much. And joining us now is Democrat Shelly Yoder. You heard your opponent say that you are for big government and that you will be a blank check for Secretary Clinton if she becomes the president.
Well, thank you, Raphael, for having me. And those kinds of claims are just more examples of how out of touch that my opponent is with Indiana. He doesn't know Indiana. He doesn't know Hoosiers. And if he did, he would know my record. He would know my reputation. He would know Indiana. And certainly my reputation on the Monroe County Council has not been all about all these claims that he is making. It's obvious they're desperate attempts, throwing everything at me to try to get things to stick. People know me because I'm born and raised in Indiana. Raising my family here in Indiana, have a career in Indiana, put myself through school here in Indiana. And people know me. They know better. They know not just by my words, which is what my opponent's trying to do. They know me by my actions. And all of those claims are just completely false.
On the campaign trail, Secretary Clinton is now, of course, joined by the First Lady, Mrs. Obama, in an effort, obviously, to get out the vote. But Mrs. Clinton has been struggling the last couple of days with all these WikiLeaks leaks, as well as the Clinton Foundation. Will Mrs. Clinton on the campaign trail here in the 9th District, will that help you? Will that be a drag, or will that be a boom for you as you, in these remaining days?
Well, one thing I know about Hoosiers is they want a fighter for them, and that's what this campaign has been about. I did run in 2012, and it was an exceptional experience, and I learned a lot. And I'm just building on the relationships that I have been able to build over a lifetime of being a Hoosier, talking to community leaders, talking to family members, talking to folks up and down the 9th District about what is truly needed to bring rural Indiana back into this economy that seems to be recovering, but people don't feel it. The rural Indiana, the communities that I've been pleased and honored to represent, the community leaders there, they feel like this economy has really left them behind, and we have got to get back to talking about ways that we can stand up for rural Indiana and make sure that the investments that need to be made, whether it's roads and bridges, but really broadband technology. It's hard to imagine that so many communities in the 9th District do not have reliable access to broadband, and that is going to cripple our businesses, our small businesses, our farming communities. It's impossible to get educators to be able to give homework to send home with their kids, and what the 9th District needs is a leader that knows them and can serve Indiana best.
So let me ask you, in our last minute together, the Affordable Care Act, we have seen now double-digit increases for many families in Indiana. What are you going to do about that? Are you going to repeal it? Are you going to replace it? What do we do?
The frustrating thing about the Affordable Care Act is for the last several years, there has been a repeal, and there's been no real effort to make it better, to make it actually affordable for people. And we absolutely need to put our heads down and figure out how to make the Affordable Care work for people. There are things that the Affordable Care Act does that are really good.
So how would you change it? Let's make it better.
Absolutely.
Right now.
The medical device tax, we have got to repeal that permanently. The medical device industry for Indiana is critical to this economy, and we have to repeal that tax. We also have to repeal the Cadillac tax, which those benefits that really help middle class and working families, we should be looking for ways to actually have better benefits and not ways to actually cripple good benefits. So the Affordable Care Act, it keeps people on their parents' insurance plans until the age of 26, which is so critical. I teach at the Kelley School of Business, and when young people are trying to start their professional lives, we need some help there, and that's a good thing. Folks aren't going to be thrown off of their insurance plans if they reach their lifetime, their lifetime cap, and they can stay on their plans. Folks aren't going to be refused health care because they have a pre-existing condition. These are really good changes that have happened with health care, and we need to build on what's working and fix what's not. And I want to put my head down when I get to Washington, truly serve the people of the 9th District, and create a affordable health care plan that actually works for the American people and for Hoosiers in the 9th District.
Shelly Yoder, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Come back anytime.
Absolutely.
And welcome back to Indianapolis this week. An extraordinary night Thursday on the campaign trail for Governor Mike Pence. His plane skidding off the runway there at LaGuardia International Airport in New York. No one on the plane was injured, including the governor and first lady. You can read a fascinating first-person account of what happened from our friend Matthew Nussbaum of Politico, who was on board. We've got a link to that article right now for you on our Indianapolis This Week Facebook page. Also on board, Inez de la Cuttera, who is covering Pence both for us and for ABC News, as the governor makes a final argument around the country to get Republicans to vote.
That's right. And as he kicks off the last 2 weeks of the campaign, Mike Pence is making his final pitch to Republican voters. He says the Trump-Pence ticket has managed to win over independents and Southern Democrats, but that the election now rests in the hands of Republican voters.
Vote for any candidate other than Donald Trump. Bottom line is a vote to make Hillary Clinton the 45th president of the United States. It's a hard truth. So it's time to come home. It's time for Republicans to come home. Come home to vote for the Trump-Pence team. Come home to re-elect strong Republican majorities in the House and the Senate. And to all my fellow Republicans, I say it's time to come home to make sure that Hillary Clinton is never elected president of the United States of America.
And it's worth noting that Mike Pence was also in Utah this week for both a rally and a fundraiser. It's a tight race in that red state, with some polls showing Evan McMullin in the lead. Back to you.
Inez, thanks so much. And you heard her mention Evan McMullin, the Republican running as an independent, took his own swipe at Mike Pence and Donald Trump. McMullin posted on Twitter that the two want us to believe they own our votes, even though they don't share our true conservative values, and that a vote for Pence is a vote for Trump, which means a vote for religious bigotry, misogyny, and the expansion of government. Governor Pence will also hit the campaign trail here in Indiana today. He is set to appear at a rally with Lieutenant Governor Eric Holcomb in southern Indiana. It's one of their only public appearances together during the campaign. The most recent, this Trump-Pence rally in Fort Wayne last month. Our TV6 State House reporter Katie Hines is tracking that race for us.
Governor Pence is scheduled to join Lieutenant Governor Eric Holcomb for a rally in Jeffersonville this evening. The pair is appearing together as the most recent polls put Democrat John Gregg ahead of Holcomb by anywhere from 4 to 12 points. The final sprint begins with a little more than 1 week until Election Day.
The two candidates, along with Libertarian Rex Bell, met for the third and final debate last week, a conversation focused on health and social issues. The candidates were asked whether they'd support the expansion of needle exchange programs, and both say yes. Holcomb indicating he'd be open to allowing state funding for the programs, a change from the current law.
I've been traveling the state listening to Hoosiers talking about this, and yes, I support the needle exchange. The truth of the matter is we have got to change the way we look at drugs. For the dealer and the trafficker, they need locked up. To the violent criminal, they need locked up. But to many Hoosiers, we need to realize this is a medical issue.
Yes to the needle exchange program. We need to make sure that that's more efficient, and if we have to change the law to do it, we will. And that will require legislative action. It will require legislative action to make it so that locals can more quickly identify and act on the problem and not wait on the state to make sure that they get the resources that they need.
Pence joins Holcomb in Indiana tonight at a critical time in the presidential race. Trump continues to lead in this state in all recent polls. The Real Clear Politics average puts him ahead by 6.5 points, but it's a lead that has narrowed, and one Republican internal poll showing the race is tied. Jason, back to you.
And welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. We are joined by our political insiders, of course, Kip 2 for the Democrats and our favorite conservative commentator, Abdul Hakim Shabazz. We heard from Trey Hollingsworth and Shelly Yoder earlier today. Let's talk about the attacks on Trey Hollingsworth, the Tennessee Trey label. Also, of course, Senator Bai continues to get hammered away at for how much time he has spent here in Indiana over the past couple of years. Same argument, different argument. Are these attacks working?
I think in the Hollingsworth race is really going to boil down to those Republicans who voted for somebody else in the primary. The people who voted for Shelly Yoder, who voted for Brent Waltz, who voted for Attorney General Greg Zeller. If those folks decide to sit that race out, then I really do think Shelly Yoder has a chance. If they come in and decide to be like loyal Republicans, then I think it's Hollingsworth.
I think you meant to say Aaron Houchin.
Aaron Houchin, yeah.
Aaron Houchin, not Shelly Yoder. But,
he's got your back.
But I think that he's right about that. The question is going to be, do Republicans in that district want next time to have a real person from their district, or do they want to have a guy from Tennessee represent them? And that's what it'll come down to. And I think there's a big distinction between Trey Hollingsworth and Evan Bai. Everybody knows Evan Bai was born and raised in Indiana, and that he was a two-term governor and two-term senator. He has deep ties to the state of Indiana. What Todd Young is attempting to do is to say, well, he sold out and he's gone, And I don't think people care about that as much. They do care about a guy who's parachuting in here at the last second to try to steal a congressional seat.
So I'm going to disagree with Kip. I do think Hoosiers do care about what Evan Bayh, when you left, okay, that's fine because you're leaving the Senate, and then you went and got rich, which is fine, but don't come back and try to sing a different story, because there's been some questions about Evan's veracity, money that he made, statements that he made to the Indianapolis Star that didn't turn out later to be true. And I really do think that vol goes down to the trust issue, which is why Evan had a 20-point lead coming into this race, and now they're statistically tied if Todd Young isn't ahead by 1 or 2 points.
Well, I mean, he's spinning a poll that doesn't exist. I mean, every poll I've seen has Evan outside the margin of error with the lead, and I think he continues to have that lead. And I think fundamentally for Evan Bayh, he's got a brand. People know him. He's been a senator. He's been a governor. They know what kind of person he will be in office. He's proven himself for years and years to be that kind of person. And there's no doubt that those barrage of negative attacks have hurt him and allowed Todd Young to get there, but he's not going to get all the way.
Let's get to the race for governor now, the third and final debate taking place this week. It was nice to actually see a political debate where there was a little bit of camaraderie between
people
the candidates.
high-fiving each other.
How about it? Well, it was a high-five / fist bump thing that they had going there. This race at this point with just a few days left to go, how do you see it shaking out, Kip?
Well, you're not going to be surprised by me saying that I think that John Gregg is in the driver's seat. Everybody, I think, the last week of the campaign gets a little tight and gets a little nervous because it's getting closer. The base will come home to Eric Holcomb, although he's had a difficult time getting over like 43, so his base is going to come back to him, but I think in the end, John Gregg's going to win.
I think Eric Holcomb is going to be able to squeak this one out. I really do. If you look at internals, John Gregg has plateaued. The undecideds are moving toward Eric Holcomb, and I really think a lot of this is going to boil down to where the Trump people go. If the Trump supporters and Trump's more likely going to win Indiana, if they decide to stick around and vote for Eric Holcomb as well as Todd Young, then you could see a Republican sweep. If they decide not to, then I think that's where the challenge is going to be.
Governor Pence set to campaign with Eric Holcomb later this evening down south. Is that a sign of how close this race is, or is this a sign of Holcomb needing a little extra support down the home stretch?
I've always been a firm believer you take whatever you can get, no matter what forms it comes in. I was just waiting for Hillary Clinton to come in and campaign for John Gregg.
I think it's bizarre at this point in the campaign with a week to go that Mike Pence is coming to Indiana to campaign. Doesn't make any sense to me at all, unless they've conceded the national race and he's coming in here to help his friend Eric. That's the only thing that makes sense to me as to why he'd be here the last week of the campaign.
Let's quickly talk about the presidential race now, because I know that Abdul wants to talk about it. The FBI on Friday reopening that investigation into Hillary Clinton and the emails yet again as Donald Trump continues to rock and roll out on the campaign trail, besides a brief hiatus to promote his hotel earlier this week. Where's the presidential race going from here, Abdul?
I think right now, like I said, I think it's still Hillary Clinton's to lose. There are just too many things working in Hillary Clinton's favor. I think the Trump saving grace, I mean, granted, yes, you got the FBI this weekend saying, hey, we're going to reopen the email investigation. I think most people have made up their minds on Hillary Clinton with respect to the emails. I think the big challenge is going to be what happens in Utah, what happens in Arizona, because those places where Trump is either behind or statistically tied, those are the Republican states that you need. And if he can't breach that firewall, he's going to have some serious problems.
Where's the race going, Kip?
Well, she had a bad week. I don't think there's any doubt about it. With the WikiLeaks investigation, or the WikiLeaks leaks, I guess you would say, into the Bill Clinton Incorporated, that was not good for her, and the FBI reopening investigation also is not good for her. But I think this race is too far gone for Donald Trump to make it up in the last 9 days.
Is this a situation with Hillary Clinton and these ongoing revelations that people have heard so many revelations in the past before that it becomes white noise after a while?
Well, I think that's the argument Abdul makes, and I will accept it, I guess. The bottom line here is I don't think anybody really believes at the end of the day that she intentionally gave classified material to somebody else. I think it was probably technical mistakes and no intent to harm.
I'll agree with you. I don't think the intent was there, but it does show a certain amount of recklessness and carelessness that does bring her leadership into question. Is going to be that reckless and that careless with potentially classified information. What else are you going to do? Now, once again, 10 days out, that train may have already left the station.
Well, it was definitely a mistake to have the private server. That's where the mistake was really made.
All right, Abdul Hakim Shabazz, Kip 2, thank you for joining us. Always great to see you guys in just a few days to go.